What I'm going to be talking about today is litter amendments, and this is, I guess, a good follow-on from what Eugene was just talking about with litter reuse. The information today has come out of a AgriFutures funded research project, and I was a part of a team. We're all from University of New England or Department of Agriculture and Fisheries in Queensland. So first of all, just like to thank AgriFutures for funding the research. And I'd like to thank all of the people who contributed to the industry questionnaire that we held so that we could get some industry based information, and it helps our research to be relevant. So thank you very much for your time with the industry questionnaire. So just straight into it now. What are litter amendments? They're chemicals or products that are added to the litter to change the litter properties. And we want to do this sometimes to try and create a better environment for the birds when they're in the shed. One of the main issues that litter amendments are being used to address is ammonia. And one of the really effective ways to control ammonia production in the chicken shed is with acidifiers. The way ammonia is produced in the shed is the nitrogen is converted into ammonia through chemical and bacterial processes. And acidifying the litter interrupts both of these processes and basically stops the nitrogen being turned into ammonia. If you acidify the litter, the nitrogen gets turned into ammonium, which is the sort of salt form which you find in most fertilizers. And in ammonium, it doesn't get emitted as ammonia. So most of the litter amendments are acidifiers, but some of them have also got other additives in them, which are either inhibitors or adsorbents or probiotic. And then there's some other products such as lime, which aren't actually effective at ammonia, but may be used for other reasons as a litter amendment. The litter amendments I'm going to talk about today are very commonly used in the USA, and the main reason for that is that they reuse litter, batch to batch to batch, full shed, they're brooding on reused litter, which is very different from what the Australian situation is. When you're brooding on reused litter, controlling the ammonia is very important. And so using litter amendments, they're able to control ammonia, which is necessary for the bird's health. But from a production and cost point of view, it reduces the need to ventilate specifically to control the ammonia. And then that helps to reduce their heating costs as well. So we've been talking about litter reuse a little bit, and there's 3 levels of litter reuse. The first one is the most common in Australia, which is no reuse, where new bedding is brought in every single batch and the old stuff is removed at the end. As Eugene said, in southeast Queensland, we have a process called partial litter reuse. And with this, brooding is done on new bedding material, but the chickens are grown out, or at the other end of the shed, litter from the previous batch will be in the shed. And then the final one is the full litter reuse, which is the American method, where litter from the previous batches is used throughout the shed and brooding is done on the shed. With full litter reuse, there may be pasteurising of the litter in between batches. This is with partial as well. This is done with heaping or windrowing the litter to heat it up and try and kill off some of the pathogens. And sometimes new bedding material might be topped up in the brooding section, but it isn't always the case. And I know you're sitting there thinking, but we don't reuse litter. And that's true. The current Australian ways of using litter with new bedding and partial reuse don't require litter amendments. Through the industry questionnaire, we've established that new bedding is preferred by the integrators, particularly brooding on new bedding, and there's no agenda to move the whole industry towards litter reuse. But with the litter shortages that are being discussed already today, it's possible that in the future there may be a need to reuse litter, and that's what brought us to doing this project, to gather information and put information together about litter amendments. I'll just stay on litter reuse for a little bit. You might want to ask, why would you want to reuse litter? There's research now that's shown that meat chickens have no actual preference for fresh or soiled litter that they're living on, so that the chickens don't mind. From a production point of view, some of the benefits that you can get with reusing litter is that you have a warmer brooding environment with warmth created in the litter, and being able to have a deeper and soft litter sort of bedding for the young chickens. It creates a comfortable environment. Reused litters got greater absorbency than fresh bedding, which can help to manage litter moisture, particularly early in the batch. It obviously saves the cost of purchasing new bedding, and it also reduces the amount of spent litter that you need to dispose of at the end of each grow out. There's also research that shows that the microbial environment within reused litter can help to establish a healthy gut environment, which can lead to improved feed conversion and other sort of health benefits for the birds. But you don't get something for nothing, and there are some challenges associated with using litter reuse as well. The main one is ammonia. It's going to be a challenge with every batch that's grown on reused litter, particularly with brooding. At the moment, we've got relatively short turnaround times between flocks, and that might need to change if we take up litter reuse, full litter reuse. There is a chance of taking particular pathogens or diseases from flock to flock, but doing a risk assessment at the end of each batch and doing some testing can help to make the decisions about whether you're going to do a full clean out or reuse your litter for the next batch. And reusing litter may require some extra labour and some different machinery on the farm as well. But ammonia is the main issue that we need to talk about today, and controlling it to keep it below the necessary threshold of 15 to 20 ppm is what we're after with the litter amendments. So as I said earlier on, the litter amendments are nearly all acidifiers. So the three main products that are used heavily in America are alum, sodium bisulfate, and ferric sulfate. And these come under branded names with AL plus clear, poultry litter treatment, PLT. Many people I think have heard of that, and class. With the products, these products, you'll see that the word sulfur is in there, or sulfate. With most of them, when they react with water, they produce sulfuric acid, and that's how they acidify the litter. On this screen as well, I've also got lime. I just want to point out again that lime has the opposite effect of acids, and by creating basic conditions or alkaline conditions in the litter, it actually releases ammonia. So there are growers who may want to use lime to treat the floor for pathogens or for litter beetles, and it can be very effective for that. But you have to make sure that it's out of the shed before the chickens are placed, so to avoid any ammonia issues. The rest of the products that I'm showing here, once again, they're all American based, and they all rely on an acidifying action of some description. The first couple at the top there have got clay or diatomaceous earth, which is used as an adsorbent. So it's like a sponge for ammonia. It absorbs the ammonia gas, and holds it in the litter. Litter life at the bottom is a probiotic solution. So it adds a probiotic effect, adds microbes to the litter, which both interferes with some of the microbes that produce ammonia, but these microbes also produce natural acids, and that helps to reduce the ammonia release. One product there, Stalacine, is actually available in Australia, but it's not primarily used as an acidifier. It's a sterilising or a sanitising agent. So it does have an acidifying effect, but it's designed more to actually, it's used for sanitising animal production environment. That's what many other chemicals that are in the product. This one chart here relates to the production costs associated with litter. So on the left-hand side, we've got the costs associated with full new bedding in every batch. So that's new bedding throughout the whole shed. The next one along is using partial litter reuse, because it effectively halves the cost of the bedding because you're only putting new bedding into half of the shed. The next two groups here are with full litter reuse. The first one is putting litter amendments throughout the entire shed. And then this next group here is putting litter amendments only in the brooding section where it's really necessary. And so what we can see here is that if we can use full litter reuse, if we use litter amendments throughout the entire shed, the costs are similar or somewhere between partial litter reuse and using new litter throughout the, for every batch. If we only use the litter amendments in the brooding section, then the cost is similar to partial litter reuse. So one of the take homes here is, from a cost perspective, you either invest in new bedding if it's available, or the litter amendments. Some of these, where you see the litter amendment cost is relatively low. This is using the manufacturer's recommended application rate. Speaking with some of the researchers in the US, they kind of suggest that these application rates are sometimes a little bit low, and they don't give you much of a contingency factor. Using litter amendments it's like a risk assessment, it's insurance to try and against having ammonia problems. If you have everything set up perfectly, then you can use a lower amount of litter amendment. But having more there in the litter ready to go helps to guarantee that it's going to be effective and will reduce the risks. Every litter amendment has a similar activation rate. You've got to put the litter amendments on before the chickens are placed to give them time to activate. But there is a bit of a difference between the products. PLT reacts very quickly, so you only put it on within a day of placing the chickens, but it also tends to be consumed a little bit quicker than some of the other products. The ferric sulfate, which is clasp, and the alum are described as slow burners sometimes in the American industry. They take longer to activate, so you need to have them in the litter 3 to 7 days before placement, and it depends on the litter moisture content. So this is a bit of a judgment call by producers as to how soon that you put the litter amendment on the litter. But regardless of the product, it's absolutely essential that the shed is fully heated and that you ventilate out as much ammonia as you possibly can before you put the litter amendment on. The more ammonia that you leave in the shed, the quicker the amendment is used up. The probiotic product has an interesting effect. After it's applied, it'll actually cause a release of ammonia, and it will take a couple of days for that to settle down before it actually starts to control it. So for a product like this in particular, you need to definitely get it on well ahead of placing the chickens. Don't pay too much attention to the exactly how long they last or how effective each one of them is. I've kind of had to do this so that all of the lines don't go over each other and just make a messy graph. How long each product works will depend on the specific conditions in the shed, the moisture content, how it's prepared, if there's been heaping or whether you've just spread the litter. So it all depends on the preparation as to how long the product will last. One of the problems we have in Australia with litter amendments is that none of the branded products are available here. But we can get the generic or the active ingredients from chemical suppliers. These chemicals are used in industrial processes, water treatment. They're relatively common. We can get these for a similar price as the branded products, but they do have different particle size distribution. So some of them are finer, some of them are more coarse, and this will mean that they'll have a different reaction time. So additional research is going to be required if you're going to use generic chemicals to make sure that they're actually being as effective as we need them to be. There's also questions about some slight differences in the chemistry of the products, and there may be impurities compared to the branded products. But none of these have been tested in chicken sheds or not reported anyway, so the additional research will be required to use generic products that are available. The other option is the branded products. And to be honest, I think if the Australian industry is going to start using litter amendments, this would be the way to go. If we're going to learn to use litter amendments, we're best using the products that we know are going to work and that are supported with a lot of experience and with support materials. So this is my wrapping up slide now. So what's the future use potentially for litter amendments in Australia? Well, there's currently no active movement towards litter reuse, but if it's necessary to do it because of new bedding shortages, well, we may see it being adopted more. If we don't take on litter reuse, there's no need for litter amendments. So the litter reuse really has to come first. Litter amendments may have a use in treating pathogens or specific diseases that may be in the litter, but it's not the best way to go about it. They may also be useful in a situation if there's a high ammonia concentration that can't be managed or seemingly can't be managed any other way. But honestly, ventilation is probably going to be more effective in reducing the ammonia concentration. And the amendments take a couple of days to activate, so you can't just apply it and get an immediate effect anyway. One of the issues that we're going to have adopting litter amendments is that the branded and tested products that are available in America are not currently available here. And we'd have to probably establish a fairly reliable and sizable market to attract those companies to Australia and those products to Australia. But the generic chemicals are available, but they will require testing and development to ensure that they're safe and effective. So once again, I think it would be better for us to learn how to use litter amendments using the branded and proven products that are available overseas. And one last little thing is that most of these products aren't registered for use in meat chicken sheds. And there's some questions over whether they do or don't need to be registered, and that would have to be sorted out before they start to be used. And so that's the end of my webinar. Thank you very much for your time. There's an opportunity now to ask some questions, but feel free to contact me anytime. More information about litter amendments is available in the AgriFutures final report and a journal paper that's been published. It's free to access, thank you to AgriFutures. So there's lots more information, a lot more detailed information in there. As I've said, litter amendments aren't something that we're pushing people to use. This project was about getting information together so that in the event that we may or may not, in the event that we may need to use litter amendments, it's there and ready to go. So we can park this information until it's needed. Thank you very much for your time.